Today I'm going to talk about a hodgepodge of things. They may not hold together particularly well, but sometimes I can manage that. Sometimes I can't too. I've often said in talks that practice is about, over time, cultivating the ability to be aware, which it is. And I've often said that a purely concentrated practice is bad for you. However, that's not quite true. A good practice is based on awareness, but you might say the servant of that awareness is the ability to concentrate. Now, people whose work involves a lot of concentration often find some aspects of practice easier. I mean, musicians often do, because they're used to taking sometimes very small things and concentrating on them. Scientists, well, anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So one thing, as our practice matures, is the ability to use concentration in the service of awareness. Now, we'll do a simple exercise just so you can see what I'm driving at here. When we begin practice, just to begin to isolate, to see thoughts as thoughts, for some people it's very difficult. The thoughts are just kind of hazy mess that is almost impenetrable for some people. As time goes on, that gets easier. We begin to see this thought space, and so on. It gets more and more clear. But nevertheless, because we like our thoughts so much, we think they're going to solve our life for us, and they don't. But we don't really know that. So we tend to be spinning vaguely during the day with a lot of thinking. We don't quite even know we're doing it for a long time. Now, what heals our life has nothing to do with thinking, even though there's nothing wrong with thinking, we have to think. But what heals our life is the ability to turn away from the thinking and just be the experience that's going on at the present moment. And we don't like that very much, because there's no central drama of I that we like this central, even if we're upset, I'm still the center of that upset. So the thinking is a spun out version of that I, and we don't want to turn away from it into that which really heals our life, which is just the actual experience of the moment. So for a long time, people think they're doing that. I certainly say it about 10,000 times, but I want to give an example of how concentration briefly can help you to do that. Supposing I've been mulling over something that maybe someone wasn't very nice to me, and I just go on and on about that, as we tend to do, and then at some point it dawns on me, oh, that's not practice. What I'm supposed to do is to be really feeling that as a body sensation. So we try it, and we think we're doing it. Right? But what really happens nearly always is there's like a haze of that thought. It's almost invisible, but it's hanging over that space, that time. It's very, very faint, but it's there. And we may not even know that, but I can tell when I watch you whether you're doing that or not. But what I want you to do is to find a way to pull yourself really into that present moment. And one way to do that is take whatever it is you're aware of. Could be external, say traffic, could be the body, and to narrow it down. For instance, supposing we take traffic. Most people have some traffic that you can listen to. If not, there's external sound. And we listen, see? And as far as we're concerned, we could say we're listening to the traffic, but we want to make that sharper. So what you want to do is see if there's one thing in that traffic that you can pick out. The traffic's like music. There's a high sound and a low sound and a boom. And it has lots of little strands. If you really listen, it's interesting. And you begin to pick out maybe the lowest thing you can pick up. And then you want to listen to that with great concentration, and as though your head would be cut off if you didn't do it. So Really not tense, but as alert as a deer would be if the deer thought somebody was chasing it, just really alert. If you do that, something begins to happen. The whole body begins to relax. Now if you go back and want to choose the body, just find something in the body that you can pay attention to. The body may be tense, but out of that tension there's something that you can pick up that's just one point, and then really just concentrate on that. And when you do, again, if you've been angry, the whole edifice will in time collapse. If you understand what I'm saying, if it doesn't, then there's still a haze. The thinking is still there, but it's so marginal you don't know it. It's as though, well, you don't have buttons, but suppose I look at somebody with a blue shirt and they have buttons down the front. See, I see the blue shirt all right, but what I want you to do is to pick out a button, see, and really just be that button. I'm still aware of the shirt. I see the blue shirt, but nevertheless, I'm really trying to really set button. It's an interesting exercise because I do it maybe a couple times a day, and I know all sorts of things about my house. You know, the cobweb I never saw before. When you really begin to look, you see what you haven't seen before. Now you can say, isn't this unduly fussy? It is fussy, but training is about being fussy. It doesn't mean you spend your day doing this, but when you're sitting, when you're returning from labeling your thoughts into the body, you don't have to do this, but for those of us who can do it. See, right now there's just the faintest itch in my left arm, see? Stay with that, see? Then awareness is being used and served. I mean, it's not being used, it's concentration is serving awareness. And the mind gets sharper and sharper and sharper. It's no longer your master, it becomes your servant. The whole mind-body complex quiets down. And it's not so easily pulled this way and that. The phrase emotion thought. See, emotion is created by thought, but only if we don't have that ability to really stay aware of the present moment, then emotion comes in. That's why a practice like this is so valuable in terms of our relationship to other people. Because other people, whether we like it or not, annoy us a lot. And so we have our thoughts of annoyance, the body tightens, and we're a little upset. Now practice over time to begin to cut into that. The upset doesn't occur after a while. How soon? Depends on the student and how hard you work. I'm not talking about getting rid of real emotion, that's a different animal. I'm talking about this constantly created irritation, upset at other people that we may be smiling all the time, but there it is, it's underneath. And it creates emotion, thought, which tightens the body and does us no good in any direction whatsoever. That's why relationships, which are our close relationships I'm talking about, are always the best practice, because more than anything else, they upset us. And so we never avoid them. I won't say to get into inappropriate relationships, that's not what I mean. But we don't avoid anything. We try to just see if we can make that into practice and learning. Because you're not going to have a good relationship until this reactive emotion thought is considerably weakened. After a while you get interested in this sort of thing. It's fun to listen to other people fight. You ever done that? Or listen to yourself fight is even better. I remember a trip I took many years ago with my youngest daughter. She was heading to medical school for the first time. Took this long trip. I don't know why, I couldn't watch the maps in a way that suited her. And one night she was so mad at me. She yelled, and of course, what did I do? I yell and scream. Sure. Then there's the impasse of the ego drives are caught. You see what I mean? That we're both practice somewhere. But it took at least a couple hours before we kind of looked at each other, felt what we felt, and the whole thing just lapsed. But this is what happens to relationships. We don't know ourselves and what we're doing with our minds. Relationships are very difficult. They're difficult anyway, maybe, but not as difficult. As I look around here, I know who's involved with who and what the difficulties are. And we're making it. See? There's a tremendous difference in practicing when you have a relationship and not practicing, and understanding just what that means. So I've talked about two things. First of all, just the function, and there are many other functions of it, where concentration serves awareness. And then in some way or other, how that serves the development of this false emotion, which we call emotion thought. See, 98% of our emotion is false. Yeah, maybe that's too high. No, I don't think it's too high. We spend most of our days being upset about something. Other people don't see it. We're nice and polite and smile, but it's there. And particularly with people that we want to be close to, then we have all sorts of expectations of the way they should be, born of our core belief, of course. People want to hear something about the core beliefs, since I'm rambling on. Lots of people want to hear about the core. Some of you are beginning to understand it quite well. So I go over periodically because I haven't found anything else in practice that illuminates more quickly. You can put your feet up in front of you if you're having tired legs. The core belief is the way you see life by the time you're about 5, maybe. Because this young child is going to meet disaster in one way or another. You know, you've got parents for one thing. We're all disasters. So as our children begin to meet us, and the days when we're cross or unreasonable, and sometimes we're wonderful, of course, but this small brain and little bundle of emotions can't afford to blame the parents, because after all, your parents are taking care of you. You can't blame those big guys. So the one you always blame is yourself. So there's no human being on the planet who doesn't end up with a core belief. You may say, oh, I don't do this, but you do. It's just hidden. It's always something like, I am worthless, I am not enough, I'm unlovable, I'm unable to do it, succeed. You could word it 50 ways, and they don't all apply to each person depending on our conditioning. Some apply more than others, but we all have maybe 5 of them, and maybe 2 of those are strong. And until we have some insight into that, you know, we all think we're running our lives because by and large people that do a practice like are intelligent, good at doing what they're doing, and we really think we're running things, but we're not. Until we're aware of it, what's running us is our core belief. And it creates all sorts of mischief. Let me think if I can think of a good example. And some of you, I know, because I talk to so many people, begin to see the overriding influence of their core belief. At first you may say, I don't have it, but you do have it. Every time you're upset, even marginally, it's there. Supposing I have a core belief that I'm unlovable. Say, oh, I don't have that. But these are people that are always very nice, very accommodating, too accommodating. They'll do anything for you if you like them. Usually they do too much. It's not that those things in themselves aren't fine, but it's too much. It's not real. Because it's not a real, just being a nice person. It's being driven by the core belief. The core belief says I'm unlovable, so I will prove to you how lovable I am by my way of being. And to somebody else it may look just wonderful, but only the person who has it understands that underneath, I don't feel so good. There's something here that's running me. if you really sit for a while, you begin to sense that you're not running your life, something else is running it. And until you've sat for many, many years, the core belief does, no doubt about it. And I don't think even if you get to be 92, you won't have a core belief, but instead of being this big, it may be this big. It doesn't run things, it's too small to run anything. But when you're young, they're big. And there is some difference between people. If you've had relatively a good childhood, it'll be much weaker than somebody that's really been through hell during that time. But everyone has something that's a core belief. And if you say, no, I don't, just watch yourself. Find out what it is. Just watch yourself when you're upset. Because our tendency when we're upset is to blame someone else. It's because he or she did that. It's because my daughter yelled at me in the car that I'm upset. See? Of course I'd be upset. I've done my best to follow this map all day and she's yelling at me. Well, of course there's something wrong with her. See, there's nothing wrong with her. Well, it's the fact that she's disturbing my core belief that, well, I've tried to do my best, the least people could do is appreciate it. I'm really worthless. I've tried today, and here she comes at me. So we're upset. See? Has nothing to do with her. When we're upset, it never has anything to do with the other person. And I know a lot of you don't believe that at all. So, See, the core belief is what's pushing all this thinking. The core belief itself is invisible. We're trying to keep it so we don't know it's there. But the thinking goes on and on and on. All right? You don't have to practice with the notion of a core belief. It's just sort of a description of how something is working. But if we don't see that core belief, it's much more difficult to deal with the streams of thinking. Eventually we begin to sense that that stream of thinking is always being pushed. We're not really managing our life. This is managing our life. And it produces mayhem, utter mayhem. In terms of relationships, in terms of work. If you have a core belief you can't do it, which is certainly mine, you'll head into something, but if you begin to succeed, that's too frightening. You have to fail. And make sure you fail. So, one obvious way, of course, is not to do the opposite. If you find, for instance, you are one of these people that endlessly are trying to please other people, you just don't do it sometimes. You say no instead of yes. You know, I've seen people here doing that. It doesn't mean to be unpleasant about it, but you just say no. See, that'll be very, very frightening to say no. They won't like me, see? Frightening. All right, let me just sum that up. The core belief is thinking, but it's a deeply, deeply held thought. As the years go on, it gets buried more and more and more. We don't know we have a core belief, but we can watch the effects of its power if we begin to be more sophisticated. And we can begin to weaken it very slowly over time. When it's weak enough, some of the errors it throws us into in our life, whether it's in work, relationships, whatever, begin to, well, they weaken too.
Could you say a little more about the difference between this false emotion and true emotion?
Well, false emotion is born out of my requirements of myself. That is, I should be a good person, I should be accomplishing a lot, I should be nice to other people. And one way or another, there's going to be emotion coming out of that because it will all get contradicted, and I may love my children, but my joy in my children is whether or not they achieve something. You see what I mean? That's a false emotion. Real emotion is just in response to something that actually is here. Just to sit with someone you really care about. It's not a big emotion, it's just wonderful. And, or on the other side of the coin, if something you like is really threatened, say a child is in danger of being hurt, the emotion jumps right in there. There's no thought there, it's just a response, you see me? Zen practice does nothing to destroy true emotion. In fact, it strengthens it. Because most of our time is spent feeling false emotion, which just blocks our life completely. So true emotion expands, but all this petty stuff that we're engaged in begins to weaken. Yes?
So true emotion, Joko, is always in the present.
Yeah, well, your whole life's in the present. So.
Right.
But you see, the things that upset us, suppose something went wrong 2 weeks ago. Somebody hurt my feelings. If I'm still thinking about that today, that's not true emotion. But that's what we do, you know?
Could it be like, say, like a half an hour ago or an hour? That would still be considered false emotion.
Yeah. But it takes, there are very few people that can drop things that fast.
I wonder if there's you make a distinction between someone may have done something to you 2 weeks ago, you're no longer upset about it, but you still need to think about something that you need to do.
Sometimes, yeah. But if you can, I didn't say not to think, I didn't say not to do anything. Mm-hmm. But if that's driven by, it's really driven by the core belief, what you do won't be effective anyway, it just causes trouble. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying not to do anything, that would be to be a vegetable. Yeah.
I have a question. What would be the definition, I guess briefly then, of somebody's personality or character? I get confused sometimes with thinking, oh, is that their core belief or is that their nature?
Nature?
Or their personality,
Yeah.
Well, I really
See, we all have a
myself,
personality,
but
there's nothing wrong with that. But, I mean, I'm more quiet than somebody who's more bouncy.
Okay.
But some of that's genetic. Depends on the sort of things I have, the interests I have, that sort of thing. But personality, in a way, is usually got a lot of stuff mixed in from the core belief.
Okay.
There's a saying in Zen, if you know what it means, it's nature. There's no nature. I mean, in a way, we have no nature. It's just a lot of stuff here. I just want to put in a few little plugs for daily sitting. I know you all supposedly sit daily. See, if you don't sit daily, life is too complicated for you to work on something like this. This is hard work. It's really not possible, unless you've been sitting many, many years, to work on these things as they're happening. You have to have a place of your own where you can come to terms with just about anything that's going on in your life. That's not all sitting is, but it certainly contains it. If you're sitting regularly, it kind of snaps in. You sense you're uneasy. See, a lot of people stay uneasy for a week before it dawns on them, yeah, I'm uneasy. The longer you sit, the faster you know that. I mean, it goes almost instantaneously if you've been sitting a while. Once you know that, you know your core belief's active, and you can, what am I doing here? What is this? That's the real koan. What's going on here? What am I really doing? And it unearths itself. If you have a steady sitting practice, that's like the basic tool that needs to be fairly powerful. As that gets more powerful, the ability to see, to notice, to practice gets stronger. But it always takes time.